Okay, yes, it's technically Sunday, but I didn't have time to change it. Sue me. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages? It is I, the OG GM, on a rare Sunday. It is 11 o'clock, the 28th day of July, 2024. The weather is nice for a change, and we are joined by our bestest buddy from the other end of the world, Ed of Shades of Vengeance, to talk about his latest book / TED Talk, How to Be Creative. So this is a different thing. This is not a role playing. What is this?
So, first of all, thank you for making some time for me. Sorry, let me just turn that off so it's a bit easier to hear me. First of all, thank you very much for making some time for me on a Sunday. Like you say, you don't normally do a Sunday, so I really appreciate it. It's, I'm heading out this week, so I'm not around very much. Still, as you say, this is not a role-playing game. I've been publishing role-playing games for 12 years now, and I feel like, well, I mean, not only have I published role-playing games, I've published comics, I've published audio dramas, I've published novels, I've published a movie, created, written, directed, published a movie. I've done things in most media. I've even done miniatures. And I feel like I've got something to bring to the table for people who want to be creative but aren't sure how. Mm-hmm. And that's really what this book's all about. You see, I've been doing panels at conventions for many, many years now. In fact, even longer than I've actually been published, than I have had published books. I was doing conventions even before then. And I'll get up on stage and I'll talk about the process that I follow to make sure that my creative projects succeed. And here in the UK, I've been in Canada as well, so I've done it on both sides of the Atlantic. I've done about 50 total panels at conventions talking about how to be creative or making your characters real, or how to make sure that when you're writing and directing an audio drama, how to make sure that works out and so on. I've done a lot of panels on this subject, and the truth is that I believe that everyone can be creative.
Oh, yes.
And I think a lot of people try and fail, and they often fail for reasons that are quite easily avoidable.
Totally agree.
And that's what my process is about for me. It's about avoiding those easily avoidable mistakes, or getting back on your feet when something goes horribly wrong, or whatever it is that you need to do to keep moving through your project and get it done and get it out the door. Because there's some amazing creativity out there. And in a world where AI is writing our movie scripts and, artwork competitions are being run by AI and not people anymore, I want to hear the ideas that aren't the mainstream. Right. And the only way you do that is by encouraging other people's creativity. So I thought, look, this is not about what you create. This is about how you create. It's about how you structure what you're doing in such a way that you have the best chance of succeeding. And the book follows a series of chapters. The intention is that you go through them in order, more or less. Starting from, you've got an idea. How do you make sure that this idea is the idea you want to do? How do you make sure that your motivation is like, you understand your motivation, what it is that you want out of the project? How do you find inspiration? How do you build out that idea into a more complete idea? And then how do you build a universe that your idea exists within so that you have that extensibility outside of the bubble that your initial idea takes place in? How much do you define? How much do you leave free? How do you make sure that when you continue to develop your idea, you don't lock yourself into something that causes you big problems? Or if you do lock yourself into something, how do you get out of that? How do you build this reality around your creative idea that brings it to life? That's what this is all about. And then how do you build a team? How do you find the right people to work with?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Tell who the right people are as opposed to the wrong people for you. How do you deal with that? I like to call it the unhelpful, helpful friend. It's someone who wants to help you but has a completely different vision of what it is you're going to do. You know, you're trying to make a role-playing game, but they don't know role-playing games.
Oh,
so
yeah. I know that one.
Right?
Yeah.
They're talking about it as a comic, so you know you're trying to explain that no, actually, with a role-playing game, there's a different criteria. You know, how do you deal with the unhelpful, helpful friend? How do you deal with an excess of perfectionism? How do you deal with writer's block? How do you deal with this got boring and I'm not interested anymore, but I, you know, like on an intellectual level, I want to finish the project, but on an emotional level, I'm bored. All of these things are in this book, right? It's nothing to do with what you create. You might paint, you might write novels, you might write role-playing games, you might write comics, you might make movies, you might whatever. You can literally apply it to anything. It's about finding a process that gives you the best chance of whatever your talent is, bringing it to life. And like I say, I've been on stage a lot of times. I've talked about these things a lot. But what I wanted to do was widen that awareness that, as I say, everyone can be creative. I want to bring this book for really pretty cheap. I think $5 is not hugely expensive. I'm very sorry. It's $6 in US, isn't it? I don't think it's hugely expensive.
$5 for digital, $8 for physical.
For pounds, yeah, but I think it's $6 US.
Yeah, plus shipping.
Shipping for the
yeah, shipping, yeah, $6, but $100 shipping. Yes.
No, it's a small.
And you'll get it sometime next year if you're lucky.
Well, that's not the way I run Kickstarters, as you know very, very well.
Yeah.
The book's already written.
Year is generous for Kickstarters. Yes.
The book's done. It's finished. I am the print run. The size of that print run is going to be what's decided by the Kickstarter itself, by the funding. So for me, this is an opportunity to bring these ideas and these concepts to new people who might never see me on stage because they don't attend conventions. People with social anxiety, right? I would completely understand. I attended a convention. I run tables at a lot of conventions, but I will tell you it's totally different. I attended a convention for the first time in probably 10 years, just a few months ago, and I freaked out. I couldn't. I was there for 2 hours. I got some signatures and met some voice actors, and then I left. And that's about all I could really do. I couldn't cope with the environment. I'm not used to it. Because when you're behind a table, you're coming from a position of authority about your games, and people will take it or leave it. But when you're in a crowd of people, my social anxiety kicked in really badly.
Yeah, especially post-COVID, yeah.
And I could completely understand people who are just like, yeah, no, I can't cope with this. I would completely understand anyone who said that. So, but these tips are good tips. That they're useful tips. And they're tips that have had people tell me, it's the best panel that I went to at this convention.
Nice.
In MCM London, which is the big boy in the UK. Because most panels at conventions, I'm told, they're people saying how brilliant they are. It's this voice actor or this writer saying how brilliant they are. And they don't really give any insight into how they achieve that brilliance. My panels and my book, they're about helping you find your potential. They're nothing to do with me. It's all about, from my experience, this is the way that you can do it in order to overcome this problem. That's what the book's about. That's what the panel's about. That's what I'm all about. it's actually the reason that I create role-playing games. The fact that I believe everyone can be creative. It's actually the reason I create role-playing games. I look at that and I go, right, anyone can be creative, but sometimes they just need a little push or a little framework that they can exist within and know what the rules are. Right? Now, when you're being creative and you write a novel, there are no rules. Okay, so that can be really intimidating for some people. Totally understand that. But I want to hear these people's creativity. I used to, you can almost call it a social experiment. The primary thing I used to do at conventions was run the same 40-minute session all day, every day. And the number of different ways that people would solve the same problem was inspiring. I had the people who would try and persuade the guards to let them through because they're saving lives. I'd have the people who'd just open fire immediately. I'd have the people who'd sneak through. And when I solved the scenario, I was playing the medic, and we convinced them that we were like their backup team. This team of guards that were not supposed to let anyone through. We convinced them we were backup, and we spread out among them. And I sort of gave a few sidelong glances at the guy standing next to me and said, my friend, your blood sugar's too low. So I grabbed a grenade, because this medic used grenades. Grabbed a grenade, put it between two slices of bread, and said, eat this. One headless ribcage later, they opened fire. But that was my solution to the problem, right?
Yes.
So I really believe that anyone can be creative, and I want to see people realizing that. And that's what How to Be Creative is all about.
Cool. There's a lot to unpack there, dude.
Get started.
So as you said, you have done a lot of stuff that isn't just RPG. And your resume is way larger than a lot of people, I think, realize. And it's all over the place. You've got games, books, comic books, the movie, which I've seen bits and pieces of because it's on the stage. You need to get a link to that. The audio stuff, even the figure. So it is Shades of Vengeance has been everywhere. So I know a lot of the questions I get when I'm talking about creativity is, process, and is there a difference? Is there a difference creatively, say, writing a script as opposed to game, as opposed to XYZ? Is there a difference between by yourself or in a group? And, what is the creative process? So, there's a lot of creative processes. We know there's a lot of books on creative processes. And so what creative process are you a fan of? And is there a difference? Because I use the trickle down creative process, start with a large circle and work my way in.
I believe that there is little difference in the process you need to use, which is what this book is about, but a huge difference in the details of how you do it at the lower level, right? So if you're writing a script, you're attempting something very different to writing a role-playing game. There are a lot of things you don't need to explain, that people are not going to be feeling out the sandbox edges of your world the way they are in a role-playing game. So you have less that you need to do in terms of explaining the world and world building. In that sense, it's quite different because you don't have to make decisions about things that you would rather leave open. You need the general taste and the understanding of the world. You need some specifics, but there are going to be some things that you just don't even need to think about because they're never going to come up in your story, so it doesn't matter. A really good example is I like to fall back on this because I think it's a good example of a creative process gone right. Is Firefly. And in Firefly, there are so many details that are not filled in. Is there a mafia? No idea. No clue. There are criminals for sure. Yep. There's patients. She may even be part of a mafia. I don't know. There's Nishka. There's various other villains in Firefly.
But is there a space mafia? Is there aliens?
Is there a space mafia? I have no idea. I have no idea in that universe, and it never needed to be told for the TV series to work. But if you're going to make a role-playing game, you might need to know that.
Yeah.
Right? So when you're making a role-playing game, you are thinking more about everything that's going on in the world and the things that you're going to say no to and things you're going to say yes to. When you're writing a script, to take your example, you don't need to cover that because it's not going to come up in your story. Now, it might eventually come up, and only at that point do you have to make a decision about whether there is a space mafia.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that sense, it's very, very different in terms of how far you go into the detail. But either way, you're going to have to create the universe. You're going to have to understand what the characters are like. You're going to have to understand what the main points of contact are. I've always seen my role-playing games as a scaffolding that they'll show you where you're in dead air. If you walk in that direction, you don't want to go that way. That won't work. But other than that, you can wander around where you want to and construct your house in whatever shape you like within that area. And the stories fit in that area as well. They just fit in a smaller region of it. I've previously compared role-playing games to or creating a universe to a mansion, right? An enormous 5-story house, huge, 100 meters long, enormous, right? And the role-playing game lets you unlock the door and walk in, right? And in theory, you could explore every single room in that house, but for the most part, people don't. They find a few rooms where they're happy enough and they run with those. A comic or an audio drama lets you look in a window at a specific room at a specific time with a specific thing going on. It's only a tiny subset of that, but it can give you a real flavor of what the house is like. And it might be completely wrong because every other room in the house might be totally different. You might be looking in the weird uncle's bedroom for all you know.
Yeah. So my bedroom, yes.
I wouldn't care to comment on that. I don't know.
I'm the weird uncle, yes.
So, in that sense, I believe there is difference, but mainly in the details. I think every creative project goes through the same problems. Do I work with someone else? Do I have the skills to do everything? Can I learn to do the things that I don't already know? Will I be good enough if I do? Will this stuff come out well enough? Will working with someone compromise my creative vision? All of those things, I think they happen in every project. And you have to make a decision for you. That's right for you. There's no right decision for every project.
Mm-hmm.
There are some projects which I know I need to do alone.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some projects which I know I need help for. So I don't stick to just one way of doing it. I mean, and I don't stick to just one medium either, as you've observed. I like to understand creativity, and that means doing everything in every way. I hope that makes sense. I sort of feel like I just rambled for 20 minutes saying nonsensical stuff.
That's okay.
But hopefully everyone understood what I was going for.
Who knows? Hopefully they do, or at least they can come away with what questions they want to ask. Should there be another next time? Which is
well, and feel free to ask any questions on the comments if you're watching and wondering.
Sadly, no one's watching it, but it is still early. So two things, again, as a fellow creative in multiple genres and who grew up in the studio system here in the States, obviously as a creator, you are your own worst enemy.
Oh God, yes.
So you discuss resources, and I think especially in today's day and age, people don't really know what resources are available to them. I
think that's very true. Yeah.
Like here in America, it's amazing how many people did, when I first started doing all the research for my projects, How many people didn't know that they could go to the Library of Congress for free?
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I just start all my research at the Library of Congress. And then people are like, what? Yeah, it's free. You can go in the Library of Congress. They've got every book ever written. What?
Well,
So,
they don't, I guarantee you, but they've got a lot of them.
Yeah, not all of them, but a lot. Not the secret Vatican library, but okay.
Oh no, I'm willing to bet they don't have any of my books.
They might have references. So what you talk about resources, what resources do you think are out there now that you mention in the book that maybe people don't know about that could help them with that creative process? Like besides like Fiverr and whatever.
I mean, in seriousness, Fiverr.
Yeah.
That is actually a resource which I think most people do not understand very well. It's actually a tremendously useful resource if used properly. The problem that I find most people have with Fiverr is they'll go and hire the first person they see who has roughly the right amount of, roughly the right budget, often compromising their budget because they don't believe they'll find anyone. One of my big secrets, big inverted commas there, is that I don't compromise. If I love their artwork, but they're above my budget, then they're above my budget. Unless I know I can extend my budget, or I can do some change, like reduce the number of images, for example, unfortunately, I can't work with them and I've got to keep looking. And a lot of people get very frustrated with recruitment. I see this a lot in my day job, actually. People get very frustrated seeing 50 candidates and none of them are the right candidate.
Yes. Oh, yes. Especially with art. Yes.
But you got to move on. You got to keep going. If you don't have the right candidate, you don't have the right candidate, and you've got to keep looking. People give up a little bit too easily in general and compromise and say, right, well, this isn't what I wanted, but I'll take it. And they end up not liking their own project as a result.
Yes.
I've done it. I've done it. I'm guilty.
Yes. And again, it's one of those things where how do we help people make that logic leap to know,
if it's your first project and you don't like it, you will never finish it. Almost certainly. Like I am 80 to 90% sure that if you don't like your project, you will never finish it if it's your first one ever.
Yes, especially if you're first, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very rare that you'll be able to. And if you don't like it, who on earth do you expect to like it?
Yeah, yeah.
It's...
So how do you cover the, without getting too deep into psychology and that kind of stuff, how do you in the book help people get over the leap of the I can't draw, I can't write, I can't sell this, I can't edit this?
I speak about, or write, I guess in this case, about the choices that you need to make, right? So they say it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. Now, I don't know if you've ever done the division, but the truth is that is 5 years of 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Little under 5 years of 40 hours a week. Are you willing to spend 5 years of 40 hours a week learning to be an artist, an editor, a proofreader?
No, I'm lazy, but no. Yeah.
Well, if your project means enough to you that you're going to do it, then fair enough. But most people I've ever met don't want to do that. And that means that you need to come to terms with the fact that you've got to find someone to do that for you. It is possible to find people who will work with you for free. I can't really advise you on that, apart from to say, if you then make money off your project, please pay them. That's very important.
Give them credit, yeah.
Well, I give them credit and also pay them. Pay them money if you start making money. That's the least you can do. And I talk about finding the right team member for you, about how visions align, about how visions don't align, about how the journey that you are taking together with the person you are working with can be the same for a significant length and then veer off at the end, and that's okay, as long as you've dealt with all the things you need to along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about finding the right people and building an understanding with them. And I use a tool that I call the project paradigm in order to achieve that, which is it's a way of describing what you care about your project.
Cool. All right.
A sentence, like a brief. Amusingly, how to be creative is the project paradigm for how to be creative. Because I'm bad at naming things. But
yeah. Who isn't? Yeah.
Oh, naming things is by far the hardest part of being creative.
Yes.
For me,
yes.
anyway.
Yes.
I'm terrible at it. And
making sure somebody else doesn't already use the name. Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't. I even talk about someone else has already done this. I actually put a whole section of the book into that because I know someone who threw up his hands and said, right, well, I'm done with this project. This TV series has come out and it's exactly the same.
Yes. Oh God, yes.
I give up.
Yes.
I can't be bothered with this. I'll get in trouble anyway. And I looked at it and it's nothing like the same. He just saw the similarities and not the differences.
Yeah. I would say it never stopped Roger Corman. For making something that was extremely similar.
Yep. I mean, 15% different.
Carnosaur.
15% different is the threshold for copyright.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Unless you're deliberately doing something wrong, you are not going to fall into a problem.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Vanilla Ice.
Yes, I think that's a lot of concern for a lot of people is the copywriting.
If you're not doing something wrong, you are not going to run into a problem with 15% different.
Yeah.
You're not.
I think part of the is that a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah,
that's another one you have to
and again, you're absolutely right. That's exactly why I include it in my book.
Yeah,
it's really important that people understand that if you're making a genuine effort, you can be inspired. I made an entire role-playing game inspired by Final Fantasy. It's got many similar characteristics. It's got crystals in it. It's got magic and technology, and it's got a little bit of a Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 6, 4. It's got those flavors in there. 13. It's got flavors in it.
Yes, that's totally how I do my stuff too.
But it's not any of those things, right? It's not those worlds with those organizations and those people acting in those ways for those reasons. It's not that. It's something different. And it's easily different enough that it is no problem for copyright.
Yes, totally agree.
So, yeah, I think it's really important that people understand copyright laws are not there to actually destroy creativity. They're there to protect you, the creator, who is trying to create something. That's actually what they're for. They're to stop people like the large TV networks stealing your stuff and going, the movie Underworld. We're back in RPG territory here. The movie Underworld was sued by the World of Darkness. It would have been White Wolf then.
Yeah.
Successfully. Because they ripped them off really hard.
Yes. Oh, totally.
I mean, they don't call it the Masquerade, but yeah.
Yeah. The different clans and the...
Exactly. Right. And yeah, you sort of look at this and go, okay, here's an occasion where a big movie company was sued by a tiny tabletop role-playing game company, relatively speaking. I mean, it's big for tabletop role-playing games, but for company size, it's tiny.
Yeah.
And they won easily. That's why copyright exists.
Yeah, that's why I copyright all my stuff, and everybody should.
Fortunately, and here's something else that people don't know. Here in the UK, anything you create is automatically copyright.
Oh, okay.
It's really nice. You don't have to pay anything.
Yeah, you do here. I think it was $40. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, it's not expensive in the US, but here in the UK, it's free.
Yeah, and there's always the send a copy to yourself, poor man's copyright.
I do have a bookshelf for a reason.
Yeah, you just cover yourself, keep it in the envelope. It counts as a legal document. Okay, last one, because I know it's Sunday and you got stuff to do. But this is a big one, and you mentioned it, and I think it's something to readdress because you mentioned AI.
Yeah.
And the concern about the AI taking over all of creativity. And for the last couple of years, the big argument has been, it's a useful tool, but we're afraid that it's going to take everything over and end creativity. But the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you're seeing this, I'm noticing a shift, especially in regards to a certain very large tabletop role-playing game company that's based in Seattle, whose names I won't mention. Yeah. That people are actually saying, no, actually go ahead and make it all AI, because now that's opening more doors for those of us who are actually going to create real tangible product, because people aren't going to want to see the pablum of just copy paste that a certain tabletop role-playing game company that's based in Seattle is going to be doing in the future. So a lot of the creators are now saying, I don't care. This actually is a good thing, because it's inspiring me to get stuff out there now, because I know that's what people are going to want. They're not going to want the pablum. Do you see that as a change in the AI thinking? Do you think that's still a concern, or do you think that's actually maybe opening the door for a lot of creativity?
So for me, I think that's a very short-sighted point of view by the creators who are creating things for this enormous game that we are discussing. Specifically, creators for this enormous game that we are discussing.
Yes.
The thing is that everything already exists.
Yes.
Right? Anything that you're going to create pretty much already exists. It's the combination in which you recombine those things that makes it unique to you. AI is far quicker, far cheaper to do this. So if you are a large company who owns a large tabletop role-playing game, biggest in the world, do you continue to allow people to use, I don't know, let's say hypothetically an open gaming license, which would allow them to, use your rules and publish things and make money off your intellectual property? Or do you just feed every module that's ever been made, everything
you own,
every new class, everything that anyone has ever come up with for any edition of your extremely long-standing game into AI and say, hey, come up with 50 books for me, please. I want to sell them at 50 quid each, so they need to be 100 pages each. Go.
Well, they've already said they're going to do that, but okay, yes, you're totally right, yes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The point is that these creators who are okay with it, they're the ones who are going to lose out. Also the consumer, to be honest, yeah. But the creators are the ones who are going to lose out, because there is going to be no space for you to make a blue mage in said large. I'm back to Final Fantasy. I like Final Fantasy.
No problem.
You want to make a blue mage in said D&D game. Sorry, said large game. My bad.
Said large game.
But that's already been done in the 3rd edition of that game, so all they have to do is port that over. The AI does that for them for free in no time flat.
So
you as a creator, as
people are just going to
party creator who creates content for this large game, have no chance at competing with that.
So is that? Do you think that we're seeing the end of independent publishers like yourself and me?
No.
We reaching the point where we're just going to go, why should I bother making another, silly superhero game or a book about kaiju, because the AI can just do it better and faster?
Better? No. Faster? Yes.
Yes.
That's the thing. The thing is that I think, and this, I should say, this happened in the publishing industry, okay? When digital design tools came along, Photoshop, I mean PowerPoint, right? Suddenly you don't need designers anymore, right? This was decades ago now, but suddenly the boss's PA was making the presentations instead of a paid designer. All the designers got fired. It was about 5 years before they realized that it wasn't working and they pulled everyone back again. I think what's going to happen is, and I think I'm seeing it happen now, to be honest, in the movie industry. I think people are going to get bored of what AI can come up with. I think Marvel movies are a good example. Now, I'm not saying they are written by AI. I actually don't know. But they're certainly following a known formula that people have known about for a long time. And I think it's hard to deny that interest is waning. Right? Marvel has so many good stories that they could bring to the screen. But what they do is they use their formula because they feel it works.
Yes.
And there is no question in my mind that viewing numbers are going down for Marvel movies.
Well, I mean, something just made almost 40 million. So, certain movie about two guys.
Yeah, that's true, but it's also very much an exception to their formula, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
right.
To, like, not... you know, the Acolyte flop. You know.
Yeah, I in no way think that people are bored of superheroes. I have a 3-year-old. He is absolutely insanely into anything superhero that he can see. I've shown him a couple of clips from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man to, you know, Iron Man, Hulk, and he loves superheroes, right?
Good for him.
And it's not gone, right? The passion has not gone for people. What they want is something that interests them, doesn't just tell the same story again. And I started to see this around the time the Black Panther movie came out, to be completely honest. People were starting to get bored of the formula. That was the first time I heard anyone really talk about the formula that I'd noticed some time ago, but someone other than me spoke to me about it. About how it's always just a bad version of the same thing. Who's more powerful, but the hero overcomes it because blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
No matter what you might say about Iron Man 3, it was not that. So I think that the position that you're stating for the creators who are fine with it being AI, I think that's very short-sighted of them. I think they will regret that position.
But I think what they're saying is we know that they're going to ruin very large game with AI. So there's a chance that people are going to want to see more original passion projects, like you said, you know.
I think that is still going to be harder than they think it is. Because there are two main reasons that I believe I struggle to get people into my games. The first is, I've never heard of that.
Yes.
You know, you're willing to shell out 40 grand for a license and get, sorry, I was going to drop a specific name, but I don't want to target a specific company like yourself. Different company, but specific company. You shell out for a license and you get something with name recognition. You know what? I'm going to pick on this because I already mentioned it earlier. There was a Firefly game.
Yes, there was.
I think it was done by Margaret Weiss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And they're a company who got many licenses.
Yes.
They did many games with licenses. That has brand recognition instantly. People will buy a Firefly game because it's the Firefly game. They won't buy a game that might be better because they don't know anything about it. But they don't think, it's a Firefly game, but I don't know if the mechanics are good. They think, Firefly, buy it.
Yes. Yes.
Right? This is unfortunately the way that psychology works, and it's wrong, and it's bad for the consumer, but it is the way that we're brought up. The thing you recognize is going to be good. Unfortunately, I think what we're seeing a lot of these days is those games are actually really bad. Like, really, really. Not Firefly specifically. I actually quite enjoyed my dabbling with it. But those games which are licenses that are just a cash grab from those companies with enough funding to pay for a license, they tend to be really bad. A few of them are good, and then the vast majority of them are really awful. I am working on a game which is inspired by a specific computer game that had a role-playing game brought out about a year ago that was completely panned by everyone I've spoken to because it was absolutely terrible. Apparently. I've not played it. I've not played it.
I don't know which game that is. Yes, I do.
But, you know, this is common. This is frequent these days.
Yes. Buy the IP and then attach the system to it.
Yeah, and just stick a label on the side that says it's this computer game or that movie or that TV series that you liked, therefore you must like it.
Yes.
It's very common because it works psychologically. You make lots of sales. You have unhappy customers who think the game is crap, but you made lots of sales, so that's okay, right? Well, in the corporate world, it actually is. It's fine.
Yeah.
Me as a creator, I don't like that, and I don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
So that's the first way in which it is problematic to sell my games. The second is I can't be everywhere. I don't scale, right? I can run games and show people what it's like to play and so on, but I can only run one game a day, probably, in most cases. That's for 4 to 6 people to keep it in control over the internet. I don't live in the US, so I can't do in-person games in the US. I can only do them here in the UK. I can only do them in a small section of the UK that I can realistically reach. It's very limiting. And it's linked to the previous thing because it's very hard to get people enthusiastic about an indie game. So it's very hard to get people who will be advocates for you, who will run games for you in the US, who will, to take an example. And that's a huge challenge of running a small company that wants to be creative. I have not cracked the marketing thing. I'm not going to claim I have. I don't claim I have in this book. I'm not talking about marketing. I'm talking about getting your product that you want to create from the beginning of creation all the way to the end, and having a book in your hand that you can then seek advice on how to sell, because I am not expert enough. After 12 years of doing it, I do not consider myself expert enough to be able to advise on that.
Mm-hmm,
so I don't try.
Yeah. Very few of us can. For those of you who've been lucky enough, God bless you. But yeah.
To be honest, I think if either of us could, we wouldn't be sitting here talking.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone else who's not watching can.
All right.
If
Yeah.
you believe in your project, I do just want to say, sorry, that was quite a downer. So
I know, and that's disappointing.
Your project, that's the point. If you believe in your project, someone else out there will believe in your project as well. You have to find the right way to explain it to them so that they understand it and get motivated by it and want to see it happen. But someone out there will believe in your project as well. You are not alone.
Yes. Well, I believe in you, Ed, and hopefully you believe in me. I don't know if Ed asked. I should said Ed some of my stuff since I have all his stuff. Thanks, Ed, for taking time out to talk to us about creativity. Hopefully somebody out there is inspired. Look, if you're thinking of doing anything, don't be afraid. Don't tell yourself you can't write it, you can't draw it.
A lot of people feel like they need permission to do it. You have my permission.
Yeah.
Go and create your project.
Yes, exactly.
I want to see it happen.
Same. I want to see your stuff. And
you know what? I'm gonna one more time plug the Kickstarter. There is a tier. If you are lost, I will give you at least 2 hours of my time for the 80 quid tier to help you on track with your project. Minimum 2 hours, doesn't have to be all at once. You can discuss anything you like, and I will help you to the best of my ability. because I
Cool.
want to see your creative projects come to life as much as I want to see my own come to life.
Yes. Yes. I want to see all you kids out there who think you can't because of certain company in Seattle. No, you can. You can. I mean, you know, if you're dreaming of, you know, fast cars and airplanes and, you know, starlets, maybe not. But, you know, if you want to be the Roger Corman of tabletop role playing, go for it. Make weird, wacky, wonderful stuff and publish it. And even if one person buys it, you've made the world slightly a better place.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Ed, for taking time out of your busy Sunday to inspire us. The book is How to Be Creative. It's on Kickstarter. It's made $641, so it's already beat his goal. 45 backers, 21 days to go. Link down below. Let's let Ed enjoy the rest of his English breakfast or whatever it is they do over there.
Not usually at 8 p.m. No.
Olympics, or I don't know, it's Europe, you know.
I don't usually eat breakfast at 8 p.m. I will go that far. That's unusual.
I'll eat breakfast at any time of day. Thanks, Ed, again. As always, a pleasure to talk to you. Look forward to the next one. Until then, everybody, have a great Sunday. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you later. Now,
bye, everyone.
Here's some music.